In August 2023, around the time when Japan discharged nuclear-treated water from its Fukushima nuclear power plant, the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, disregarded the fact that it signed the consent form for the discharge at the UN, and loudly voiced opposition in its domestic propaganda. Subsequently, various major CCP media broadcasted the news through social media platforms. They said the nuclear wastewater from Japan was carcinogenic and teratogenic and even caused DNA breakage in human beings, thus triggering panic and anti-Japanese sentiments among the Chinese people who weren't informed of the truth. Down with little Japan, down with little Japan. Down with little Japan, down with little Japan. Down with little Japan, down with little Japan. Now the backlash is here. On January 19, 2024, North Korea conducted an underwater nuclear test. Already fearful of nuclear contamination, the Chinese public reacted to the news with a collective concern. I just want to know, is there any nuclear contamination? Has contaminated water been treated? Are the fish in the sea still edible? Will it be blown in with the northeast wind? For example, China's NetEase published a commentary titled, "North Korea conducts underwater nuclear test. No fear of nuclear wastewater this time?" The article reads, "Can't you recognize that it's a nuclear test? Don't you know that it will produce nuclear pollution? It's not like North Korea's nuclear test will purify seawater, and the pollution could be worse than Japan's nuclear-treated water." There were over 97,000 comments on this article, but only 2,900 or so were kept. In other words, over 90,000 comments crossed the CCP's red line and were removed. They must all be curses. We can tell from the surviving comments. For example, one netizen wrote, "North Korea violates UN Security Council resolutions and the UN Nuclear Non-Proliferation Agreement. The nuclear test in the territorial waters of North Korea is much closer than Japan. How is it that even though the nuclear pollution is far away, it's criticized? However, when it's close, it's silent?" Some netizens were very agitated with messages like, "Japan's nuclear wastewater has at least been treated, but this time it directly polluted the seawater. Why don't you destroy it? I would have just destroyed it. Can you stand it if your neighbor does bad things every day?" Others have also pointed out the essence of the problem. Nuclear wastewater is categorized into which camp it belongs to. Another netizen sarcastically said, "You people don't know this nuclear wastewater is aimed to attack Japan and South Korea. On the other hand, when we drink it, it can raise our IQ." Because the source of nuclear contamination is North Korea, a country friendly to us, the radioactive materials produced are beneficial with socialist values. There is no need to panic. In the comment section, one can see many government cyber troops making remarks to defend North Korea and the Chinese government. One of the examples used for argument is a case in the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union had once used a nuclear bomb to blow up an artificial lake in Kazakhstan. After the bombing, the nuclear radiation level was quickly restored to normal, and its Minister of Nuclear Energy took the lead in swimming. The person lived to be 93 years old. These have set off the fighting spirit of ordinary netizens. They wrote, "You actually know that this is nuclear sewage, right? Didn't you say that everything had returned to normal and that people could even swim in it? When one swims, don't you get water in the mouth? Or your skin doesn't breathe? Speak with some common sense, okay? Who told you that the swimming Minister of Nuclear Energy lived to be 93 years old? Are you just saying it, or are you bullying people having no access to the internet?" Let's first briefly review what happened. On January 19, 2024, North Korea state media KCNA said North Korea conducted a test of its underwater nuclear weapons system in a protest against the joint military drills by South Korea, the US, and Japan. The report didn't specifically introduce the characteristics, performance, and purpose of the weapons system. But according to the KCNA report in March 2023, North Korea tested a new submersible attack weapon system that month with the name HALE. These two weapon systems are likely the same. According to North Korea's statement at the time, the HALE nuclear drone submarine attack vessel submerged along the preset route at a depth of 80 meters to 150 meters for about 59 hours. And carried out underwater blasting after reaching the target point in the waters of the imaginary enemy port. KCNA cited an unnamed spokesman of the ministry who said in a statement, "Our Army's underwater nuke-based countering posture is being further rounded off, and its various maritime and underwater responsive actions will continue to deter the hostile military maneuvers of the navies of the US and its allies." The Transitional Justice Working Group, a human rights organization based in Seoul, said in a report on February 21, 2023, that North Korea's underground nuclear test site spread radioactive materials throughout groundwater, potentially endangering thousands of North Koreans as well as South Korea, Japan, and China. The radioactive material may have spread to 8 cities and counties near the site, where more than 1 million North Koreans live. Groundwater is used in daily life, including for drinking. According to the US and South Korean governments, North Korea secretly conducted 6 nuclear weapons tests between 2006 and 2017 in a mountainous area. The Transitional Justice Working Group, established in 2014, works with nuclear and medical experts and North Korean defectors and uses open-source intelligence and public government and UN reports in its research. The research was supported by the National Endowment for Democracy, a non-profit organization funded by the US Congress. Its team leader and co-author said, "This report is significant because it shows that North Korea's nuclear tests may not only threaten the rights to life and health of the North Korean people, but also the people of South Korea and other neighboring countries." In 2015, South Korea's Food Safety Agency detected 9 times higher levels of radioactive cesium isotopes in imported hedgehog mushrooms. These hedgehog mushrooms were sold as Chinese products, but they were actually produced in North Korea. Many outside experts have expressed concern about possible health risks from water contamination. North Korea has claimed that there have been no leaks of hazardous materials after past nuclear tests, but hasn't provided any evidence. On May 24, 2018, North Korea confiscated radiation detectors from foreign journalists when it invited them to witness the destruction of some tunnels at a nuclear test site. Media invited to the ceremony that day reported that North Korea had dismantled its nuclear test site. In 2017 and 2018, the Ministry of Unification in Seoul, which is responsible for handling inter-Korean affairs, conducted radiation tests on 40 North Korean defectors who were near the nuclear testing area. At least 9 people showed abnormalities. Seoul's Unification Ministry said it couldn't determine whether this was directly linked to the nuclear site. Since 2018, South Korea has stopped conducting radiation exposure tests on North Korean defectors amid a thaw in cross-border relations between the North and the South. The report said that since 2006, more than 880 North Koreans had fled from these areas. The Chinese government is cruel to those who have escaped from North Korea. We reported in 2021 that a Special Forces soldier was thrown into prison by the Chinese government after escaping from North Korea. He escaped from a Chinese prison again. With a high reward on his head, he was eventually captured by the Chinese police.
On October 18, 2021, at a Jilin prison, the man climbed up the AB door of the prison during the wind-down time. The AB door is also known as a double interlock door, meaning that when door A is open, door B cannot be opened. He climbed over the AB door onto the canopy and then jumped off the prison wall. After that, he disappeared from the surveillance cameras.
After nuclear talks with the US reached a deadlock, North Korea became increasingly aggressive in its attitude. Its leader Kim Jong-un delivered an impassioned policy speech to the leadership of the North Korean Communist Party in late 2023, denying the possibility of peaceful reunification with South Korea, and describing the relationship between the two countries as one of two hostile countries and two warring states. A level-headed judgment of the special environment in which the most hostile state, the Republic of Korea, exists in our nearest neighborhood, and of the situation in which instability of the regional situation is soaring due to the US-led escalation of military tensions, has found that the danger of the outbreak of a war to be caused by a physical clash has considerably aggravated. We do not want war, but we also have no intention of avoiding it. Kim Jong-un has called for an exponential expansion of the country's nuclear arsenal and intensified ballistic missile testing. He also vowed to launch 3 new spy satellites. In his speech, he accused South Korea and the US of reckless actions in preparing for an invasion, and warned that war may break out on the Korean peninsula at any time. North Korea launched a record number of missiles in 2023, including intercontinental ballistic missiles that it claimed in December could hit anywhere in the US and carry nuclear warheads. In late 2023, North Korea also launched a rocket that put a spy satellite into orbit. In January 2024, North Korea claimed to have successfully launched a medium-range hypersonic ballistic missile. On January 6, 2024, South Korea said North Korea fired at least 60 artillery shells into the waters near Yongpyeong Island off its west coast border. Our military instantly spotted and monitored North Korea's missile launch and closely shared related information with the US and Japan. We strongly condemn North Korea's missile launch, which is a clear provocation that seriously threatens the peace and stability on the Korean peninsula. The rigorous analysis on specific details of North Korea's missile is being conducted by South Korean, the US, and Japanese intelligence authorities. US satellites have detected modernization and expansion related to a North Korean chemical plant, which is linked to the production of missile fuel and reagents for nuclear weapons. In December 2023, the International Atomic Energy Agency reported that a second reactor in North Korea was put into operation and may be used to produce weapons-grade fuel. In the CCP's reports, it deliberately emphasized that there was a reason for North Korea's nuclear test, and it was because the US, Japan, and South Korea conducted military exercises first. China's official media described it this way. Since last year, the US has frequently deployed strategic nuclear assets to the peninsula, and the US, South Korea, and Japan have continued to conduct joint military exercises. This has led North Korea to strengthen its national defense, especially the development of nuclear deterrence. The CCP's defense of North Korea is a blatant lie, as it's the constant provocations of North Korea that has prompted the US, Japan, and South Korea to adopt a deterrence strategy and warn it not to act rashly.
I can't imagine a better way to start the new year. What a great opportunity to train infantry and armor together, ROC and US together. And this is the exact type of training that our soldiers hope for when we come here to Korea. Every single one of them will remember this day and talk about it for the rest of their lives.
When the South Korean president held a State Council meeting on January 16, 2024, he stated that once North Korea launches a provocation, South Korea would redouble its counterattacks.
북한 당국은 남북 관계를 동족 관계가 아닌 적대적 두 국가 관계로 규정했습니다. 이는 북한 정권 스스로가 반민족적이고 반역사적 집단이라는 사실을 자인한 것입니다. 우리 국민들을 불안하게 만들고 대한민국을 균열시키기 위한 정치 도발 행위입니다.
This time, South Korea and Japan both responded with a tough stance. South Korea's Ministry of National Defense expressed a serious warning and strongly demanded that North Korea immediately terminate relevant actions and said that South Korea's military would respond to North Korea's provocations under the Joint Defense Agreement of South Korea and the US. Japan's foreign minister also stated that Japan would never tolerate North Korea's development of nuclear missiles. The Japanese government would cooperate with the US, South Korea, and other countries to promote the full implementation of relevant UN Security Council resolutions and require North Korea to completely abolish its nuclear missile program. So why does North Korea conduct nuclear tests knowing that it can't afford to offend the US, Japan, and South Korea when it faces many domestic problems? We observe that there are most likely two main reasons. One is that the Kim Jong-un regime is trying to get out of its domestic difficulties. However, this approach clearly doesn't pay off. Therefore, there is a second and more important reason. It could be that Kim Jong-un has received orders from Beijing. After all, Beijing is North Korea's main financer and relies on the CCP for most of its supply of goods and energy. Today's CCP regime is in trouble both internally and externally, making it in special need of its red little brother. Externally, its international image has hit rock bottom, and the decoupling of Western countries has intensified. In Taiwan's general election on January 13, 2024, the victory of the Democratic Progressive Party, which emphasized the defense of Taiwan's sovereignty, exposed the lie of the so-called superiority of the CCP system. On the one hand, with the purging of the military, party, and government agencies, the CCP leader has fewer and fewer people to trust and is worried about his own safety all the time. On the other hand, the political setback and the depressed economy have caused common people to complain. The party and party leader himself have lost the morale of the party, the military, and the people. Under such circumstances, to divert domestic attention and distract the attention of the US and Japan, Beijing ordered Pyongyang to make trouble. It's a high probability event. This North Korean nuclear test didn't happen without reasons. Since 2006, the UN Security Council has unanimously adopted 9 resolutions to impose sanctions on North Korea for its development of nuclear weapons and related activities. Australia, the European Union, Japan, South Korea, and the US have all imposed additional unilateral sanctions, most announced in December 2022. Although China has agreed to UN sanctions against North Korea for its nuclear test, so far there is no evidence that the CCP has implemented the sanctions. Instead, it has chosen to deflect blame and covertly support Kim Jong-un's weapons program. We believe that the real reason why the CCP doesn't implement UN resolutions is because it's the one behind North Korea. And the purpose is to have North Korea cooperate with itself at critical moments to disrupt the world. According to AFP, while the G7 foreign ministers condemned North Korea's ongoing series of unprecedented weapons tests in April 2023, Communist Party leader Xi Jinping wrote to Kim Jong-un saying that in view of the complex and major ongoing international and regional situations and changes, he was willing to enhance bilateral relations through strengthening strategic communication and joint guidance. Xi's renewed elevation of relations with Kim Jong-un is aimed at dealing with the West. It is for this reason that the CCP has a different attitude toward North Korea's underwater nuclear test compared to its attitude towards Japan's discharge of nuclear-treated water in 2023. Around the time of the discharge of nuclear-treated water from the Fukushima nuclear power plant, the major media of the CCP incited the Chinese public to panic about nuclear contamination through social media platforms, leading to a frantic scramble to buy salt along the coast at the time. This is the afternoon of August 24, 2023. The Chinese masses were set off in a crazy wave, panic buying to snatch up, of all things, salt. Some experts speculated online that the explosion of North Korea's nuclear test was more than 100,000 tons. Due to the limitation of North Korea's fission technology, the fission reaction of its atomic bomb is incomplete, resulting in far greater pollution than that of fusion bombs. It relies on stacking a large amount of uranium-235 to make the bomb powerful. In other words, it's essentially a dirty bomb. The seafood near Shanghai, Shandong, China wouldn't be safe to consume recently. Of course, the CCP has turned a blind eye to this. Avoiding talking about the nuclear contamination of North Korea's nuclear test is likely to make Chinese people see clearly once again who the bad guy is that has brought great harm to the Chinese nation and its people, putting them in a hopeless situation.